Welcome back to Blazers Inside Access. We're sitting down with Coach LeRon Bennett of the Blazers cross country and track and field team. Coach, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
So the Blazers were in action this past weekend, participating in the 2019 Major Cross Country Invitational hosted by Millsaps out at Choctaw Trails in Clinton. Good performance from the Blazers. The men's team finished second in the competition, and then a couple of good women's individual results. Started off, Hunter Magno Hester finished ninth in individuals. He really put on a good performance, but I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on the whole team performance as you kind of are really in the midway, getting ready to wrap up this kind of fall season.
Well, I mean, like you said, it was a really big performance for us, and a second place finish is huge. They've been kind of just buying into the process and just deciding that the work they put in out in the mileage and the training is starting to show off. And so we just kind of have a theme that we always want to be within 1 minute apart from each other. So the fastest person, wherever he or she is, then the fifth person has to be at least a minute with that. And so that showed very well this weekend. They were actually about 1 minute and 14 seconds, which kind of produced the second place finish. So if we can get that down to a minute, we're in a good shot for conference.
That's awesome. So as we're kind of, like I said, we're kind of in the midpoint, kind of getting towards almost the end of the fall season. What has kind of been your message? It's obviously been a little bit of a transition with the cross country program this year. What has been kind of your message to the team? I mean, you mentioned getting them to buy into the process, but what does that look like as far as trying to build this program to where you want it to be?
Yeah, consistency. You just gotta make sure that if you're consistent and you take it day by day, rep by rep, then eventually the results, they do show. And then ultimately, I'm a big why coach, and so I want everybody out there to determine what their why is. They all, if you ask any of them, they have their own personal goals, and then I'm always trying to see how does that goal fit into the overall goal of the team. And when they buy into that, then what we preach as family comes together, and you can see it. You can see it when they get out there. Rick has done a really good job of leading the team. Hunter has definitely come on strong. They kind of go back and forth jockeying between first and second, but this was a good meet for Rick being kind of under the weather, that Hunter decided that he wanted to lead it, and Rick turned around and had that second place finish, and our young guys, they brought up the rear.
That's one thing I want to ask about real quick is just with cross country and the dynamic that team has, how much does that kind of internal competition really progress a team where you're competing not only against the teams around you, but you're trying to push your teammates to be better because you're directly related. Your time is directly competitive against theirs. It's kind of different than a lot of other sports.
Yeah, we have to have competition, healthy competition, because at the end of the day, I tell them you're going against other competitors that they really don't care whether you're good or not. Their goal, hopefully, and majority of the time, is to beat you. And so what we do is we push that same format at practice. We have times, we have pacing, and we always say that we don't race each other, we race the clock, because the clock is undefeated. And so if you race that, and then if we're aiming for a certain time, then everybody else, they kind of just fall in place just because, for example, if I have a guy that his time is only 18 minutes, if I'm training at 17 minutes, then I don't technically have to worry about what he'll do at a meet if I'm competing against the clock at 17 minutes. And so that's our mindset. It's a lot more stable that way, because if you start chasing other people, then you're relying on, they control what you do. And we want to control the controllables.
Now, in a couple of weeks, you're going to be headed back to Choctaw Trails, back to Clinton, taking place in the Mississippi College Invitational. Over this it's about a 2-week gap. What is going to be your kind of focus for the team as you're trying to obviously improve on what was a pretty good performance in the Major Cross Country Invitational?
It's about the base. We want to try to get the base as wide and as thick as possible, so that way when we're ready to kind of transition to speed work or faster, shorter distance, we're ready to go. It started over the summer. For a lot of them, this is their first time doing a lot of mileage. And so it's a transition period with that. The body kind of goes through the bumps and bruises. And so now we're kind of just starting to mold the base up to what is essentially conference and maybe regionals. And then we kind of reset the base just a little bit, and then we transition to outdoors. So They tend to get a little nervous on the off weeks because we really kind of hit it hard on the week. So there's this thing in cross country where you pray for the meets on the weekends, not the off weeks, because they know it's a tough week this week.
Awesome. Well, as I said, a couple weeks away, headed to Choctaw Trails Mississippi College Invitational. We've been joined by Coach LaRon Bennett of the men's and women's cross country and track and field team. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.